Good morning all, good morning from the Glamoc fishing location, and that's the view we woke up to this morning. That's not bad, is it, really, for a view, for a wild camp. And yes, that's Hart Bristol playing in the background, but for copyright I can't play it for very long, so I'm going to unplug it, because I've had a couple of videos refused for copyright, so I've learnt that lesson in the past. So we sleep up there, out the way. We have covers on the vehicle, you'll have seen those before. And we are going to take a walk across that sort of half-built, half-derelict, we're not quite sure, house, and then we'll set off on our way up to Cold Hussar through Glamoc. So for those of you who want to visit Glamoc, bring a camper van or tent or something like that, then I would recommend this place. It's got one of those little in the wilderness icons on Park for Night. So with Park for Night, I overlander and search for sites. Not so much search for sites, because that's the posh alternative. It's a very individual experience, I would say, in that, you know, some people say I had a great night's sleep, nothing happened, and when you get there it's noisy and there's an event on and you just got to move. Or you got other people say it was very noisy, we were up all night with youths and other things going on, and it's actually quiet for yourself, so it's hit and miss. For us, this was a quiet location, so there is obviously a meeting point up here for kids, and it's just kids, you know. One or two of them had motocross bikes. It's quite nice to watch, actually. It reminded me of Albemarle Barracks on the airfield, and myself and my two boys whizzing around with my KX250, the stomp bike, and the quad. So we watched them for quite a while. And then you get a car come up about 10 o'clock. They'll probably, you know, get up to no good in the car, but that, you know, our blinds are down by that stage, and by 10 o'clock I'm pretty much in bed anyway. And the rest of the night I had the window open and it was quiet, really quiet, nothing at all. So as far as a stop-off location, a wild camp location, yeah, I'd recommend this. It's very good, and it's just outside Glamoc. As you know, if you've been to Glamoc, it's a mile outside Glamoc. In fact, Glamoc, the start of the village is over there. And that's us last night. We are lucky, obviously with a 6-berth motorhome, we can pretty much, we don't even have to bang into each other. we don't want to. I've got my jobs, Wendy's got her jobs. Sometimes we cross over and mess things up. But yeah, this is a nice location. Like I say, it's quite individual, so you just gotta err of caution, because if someone turns up and they say, oh, we had motorbikes screaming about, there was people partying, there was this happening, that, yeah, that could be a possibility, and it can with wild camping, it can be a possibility anywhere. I mean, over there you have got some really modern, new, and I would think they're like fishermen's chalets or cottages or something like that. So yeah, it could be quite busy with those once they get filled up. There was a couple came to visit one last night. They were there about half an hour and then went. That was about it. Wendy does the blinds. I tend to rag them about a bit, get them caught and seized, and then Wendy gets involved to unseize them, so I stay out of the way. Know your place, stay out of the way. Right, let's go and have a look around that building, shall we? So walking towards this place, it reminds me of those holiday hotel nightmares of the sort of 80s and 90s, where you book somewhere in Torremolinos or Benidorm, and you get there And it's like this. Water's quite low in the lake. That's the motorhome location. So like I said before, we're in the Carmen location of Glamoc. And towards the end of our tour they found a mass grave around here somewhere. And that's when all the fishing stopped. And we couldn't go out for a while because there's a big RMP presence investigation. It's all taped off for obvious reasons. It's massive in here. Jesus. This is bizarre because, I mean, the thing is though, we were looking around Glamoc and, you know, it's not a rich location. It's not. I don't think it's got, as far as resource is concerned, there's a lot of logging goes on, but I couldn't see anything else. So I'm not quite sure what the revenue is or the local business.
What a view!
So how would you tempt people to come here? You'd have to have specific, you'd have to have something to say, hey, come to Glamoc fishing to do this.
Maybe it's got a lot to do with the wildlife that they can't.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. Yeah. Imagine this is a big bifold door and massive windows, and in here is like a, I don't know, like where you eat, and a reception and private booths. These are being bricked up. So, sorry, say again?
Go up the top.
Yeah.
See what we can see.
Let's see what's at the top, shall we? We did see a couple of people in here last night, up the top.
Yeah, but he went. He was in that silver car.
Yeah.
He came and talked to those kids. Sweeping staircase. They've even started to plaster it.
Yeah, they have, yeah. That's like a silicon base coat as well on our house. In fact, it is a silicon base coat. Oh, there's flies around here. Big bitey ones.
Balcony.
Oh, should we go up again?
And then you've got seating areas in the windows.
Just try and prepare myself for someone sleeping up here.
Loads of wood.
Nice wood roof. Yeah. What I'm looking for is any sign of life. No, but you know, you've got to check these things out before you go stumbling into it.
What the hell's that for? A big round hole in the middle of the floor.
So you see, this looks new, and it does, but that roof isn't new. That bit is. But that's got at least 10 years in it as an inside roof, unless they've used old planks to begin with, which is a possibility.
Maybe they've been starting to build.
Yeah. Yeah, to the naked eye I can see it.
Windows in as well.
Yeah, it's a...
And this one, a newish window.
But it has been like this for a long time. Why would someone cut the joists out there?
That
Maybe...
is brand new, mate. That's that.
No, the joists are new, mate.
Yeah.
And the hangers.
These here, if you look at the corrugated stuff, that's new.
It is, yeah. Yeah, so the roof is new. Yeah, you're right. But what's confusing me is the roof is new, accepted, and the guttering is new because there's not much shit in it, not much dirt in it. But you look at the lining of the roof, and some of it is new, but some of it is really old, like battered, wind swept. Oh, I don't know. I suppose we'll never know. And then you've got these supports in, holding up the roof. And supports holding up the upper roof. No strong boys though, just supports. Look at the size of that hanger, it's fucking tiny. Oh my god. You got a small hanger holding that beam up. Ooh.
But Hoppy and
Ben Juice.
imagined this being here when they came down to the lake.
Yeah, well perhaps they can comment when they watch this. Was this Ben? And if I'm honest, I knew Ben came down here, and I definitely know Hoppy came down here. But there might have been other people as well. That I just can't remember. I wasn't into the fishing scene at all, so I just wasn't bothered with it. Was this here when you remember? Was this building here? That was a long time ago, and it doesn't look that old, so maybe not. Right, I'm going to finish with a shot of the motorhome. And then we are going to be on the road. No more distractions. We're going to be on the road, up through Glamoc to Cold Hussar. So down that road we're just going out of Glamoc. I just want to point out, down that road is a place called Dravar. Now, when we were here it was called Tito Dravar, but since then they've just changed the name to Dravar. And Dravar, as you go into down that valley down there, this is where Martin Hopkins drove into a minefield. It wasn't his fault. The recce officer at the time, who I won't name, put a gun position within a minefield by mistake, and Martin and his crew drove in there, and it was only just sheer luck that when they got to their allocated position, as it were, that one of the detachments, I think it was actually mine, noticed a mine like popping up out of the ground. So it took 2 days to get them out. They called the Royal Engineers, and it took 2 days to extract them. Now Martin Hopkins is naturally an angry person, and he was not very happy with a BRO, battery recce officer, when he came back to camp. The air was quite blue for quite a while. But these mistakes do happen, and no one was injured. So as we're going up the road here, there's a bit of B-roll before we get to Cold Hussar. I'll explain about the maps that we used to use back in 1996. So the issued map absolutely useless. So what it did show, it was a mixture of greys and blacks and nothing else, no colour. And what it did show was all the roots, which was helpful, all the cleared roots. But the marking, in fact I'll show you the map here. So as you can see from the map, the routes were marked on with thick black lines. You couldn't differentiate terrain or smaller tracks or junctions or any detail that was required in any great depth. So we put up with these maps for, I don't know, literally 2-3 days, and we'd had enough. So in the first 3 months, in fact I'll just pause you there, the building you can see up there with the sort of the large building with the protruding centrepiece, that was the school that we got the blackboards and chairs from when we taught the advanced drivers course. Just in there, it was a school at the time. It's not a school now, or if it is, it's quite derelict. Yeah, so these maps we bought, we actually bought tourist maps. So we're in Split, going through to Split, and in the first 3 months my job was a convoy commander for drops, and I used to work in the motor transport, the MT department, with Eddie Edwards, hello Eddie, Shaky Shaw, hi Shaky, Gilly, hello, and Mark Wood, obviously Mark Wood, my best friend, and a load of others. I think Jace Corbett, who we shared a room with, was also in the MT, but I can't remember him doing much work. So we did the sorry, other names I've missed out: Scouse Morel, obviously, and A.D. Whitaker. We can't forget A.D. Whitaker, can we? He was my, I shouldn't forget him. He was my like, I shared a cab with him for about 2 months. For the first 3 months, I was a drops convoy commander, MT detail commander. So I took the drops vehicles out, along with others, you know. I think Gazlan was there as well, that's another one on the MT. There was quite a few of us, because it was quite a big job. And we used to go all over Bosnia, and we had a really good job. Although it was winter, and the challenge of the conditions was quite a lot, you know, the snow was quite deep at times, and I'll tell you about the snow later. But the maps that we bought out of Split were tourist maps, and I'll show you the map here. So as you can see, I've written and scribbled on it, but it gave a lot more detail. This is what we needed to differentiate the detail between where we're going. Use that for the first 3 months, and then after the first 3 months I was then put on the guns as a gun detachment second in command, 2IC, or in artillery slang, a coverer. So driving up this road brings back memories, and actually they're quite scary memories, because there's a thing called a Krav. It's a massive recovery vehicle, weighs about 80 tons, and these things are, you know, big, butch, massive things, recovery vehicles, and they went with us everywhere to pull us out of scrapes, or, you know, recover us back, especially when the fuel tanks were the spate that I told you about yesterday, where the fuel tanks were busting all the time. But coming up here, and specifically here or down here, during the times where we deployed to Cold Hussar, was quite scary times. You can see the drop off over to the left hand side. Now on AS90, when it's icy, you put what's called cleats on the tracks, and every 7th track you knock off the track pad, which is a rubber pad that gives you traction and grip between the metal track and the road. It's called a track pad, it's a rubber pad. So you used to knock those out every 7 links and put these cleats in, and they give you traction. They give you not a lot of traction, you still have to take it really slowly, but they give you traction. But it also depended on the amount of track pad you had on the vehicle as well, because any metal to metal contact, when I say metal to metal, it was a metal track on a metalled road, as in tarmac. It was like glass, it was like putting some liquid in between 2 sheets of glass and rubbing them together. You just slipped and slide all over the place. Well, the Krav was renowned for going through track pads. You know, it would go through them quicker than you like. And the worst thing the Remy wanted to do is change their own track pads, because it was a hell of a job. AS90 was a full detachment, it was a job of work. We got in there, one crew would change 2 tracks in about 2 tracks worth of track pads in about 3 days. It was hard work. And the Remy had ordered these track pads to replace the broken ones, the worn down ones, but they hadn't turned up. And we kept deploying and kept deploying, and it got so bad and so dangerous that the Krav, 80 tons worth of armoured vehicle, was literally sliding down this hill, round these corners, bouncing, scraping down these the sort of the guards at the side of the road, or just by luck coming to a stop, and it was quite treacherous. Wendy's driving today, driving on the back roads. That bing 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 is just our sat nav. It's telling us that we're near the speed limit or just over the speed limit. So that's the story of the maps and the armoured vehicles coming down here from Cold Hussar with the track pads, and the issue we had with no track pads or track pads worn down. It was quite dangerous, really dangerous actually. So as we drive through the zone of separation, we obviously come across the border signs, and this is what we were here in '96 to separate the 2 warring factions, to keep them apart. And the place we're going to go to is right on the sort of the zone of separation on the border itself. So what I will say is that I did mention that, you know, we did a lot of convoy work, and because we were the first ones to undertake the IFOR task, the implementation 4 task, we were the first inhabitants, like I said before, Glamoc for instance. So we had to pick up and deliver all the shipping containers from Split. So we got the luxury of going all over Bosnia, all over the place. I even went to Dubrovnik on one occasion. That was a slight odd task. On another occasion, I had to take a guy that was, his parents were ill, to Zagreb airport. So as far as getting about the place, we really did some mileage. It has to be said our primary task was to carry ammunition for the AS90s, so a rack's worth of ammunition. And we would go wherever the guns would go, and we'd stay there just in case they needed us to replan. Which could be boring, but you know, we made ourselves busy. So just up here, Wendy's supposed to be a cafe restaurant. the one that we used to call Cold Hussar. What I like you to do is pull in if possible. If there's a car park, there should be because it's a restaurant. I'm looking at the maps, it's just round this corner. There you go. Okay, so now we're going to pull into what we called Cold Hussar. And we're going to find a place to park out the way. And then I'll walk you around, tell you exactly how this place used to be laid out. Yeah, just along here, sounds good. And then we'll go for a coffee, Wendy, when I've finished. Okay. Right, I'm going to turn it off while I get out of the vehicle. So first of all, it's got to be said that it's the most bizarre feeling that we've got the motorhome parked up in the very place that we called Cold Hussar. It is absolutely mind-blowing. So up here I've got a couple of photographs which I'll show you now. We used to put the backs, excuse the dog, we used to put the backs of the vehicles against here. Backs of the Fodens. Full with ammunition, like the photographs I've just shown you. And the guns were deployed around here. Usually 3 guns, 1, 2, and then probably a third one where the motorhome is-ish. All that was closed down. It was just wrecked, nothing left of it. And it was so cold in the winter up here. Absolutely the coldest I have ever been. But this is like every location that we go back to, this is just weirding me out. Because the last time I was here, remember, I did the guns at the end, so I saw the end of the winter and the summer. And so when we first started coming up here, and again remember, with the first ones here were IFOR, so there was no one here before us, there was no toilets, right? So we found a large, like a massive large plastic barrel, and remember the weather conditions were freezing. So what the lads used to do, including myself, is used to go to the toilet for both 1s and 2s in this barrel, and within half an hour of you going to the toilet it had all frozen, no smell, nothing at all, nothing leaking out, good to go. And that's where it was. There was a seat on it and you went to the toilet, and that was that. We were up here, deployed up here for about 3 or 4 days, probably no longer than that. Then we'd go back, or we'd go on to another location. But as the summer started, the barrel started to melt, and you can tell what happened. It was absolutely disgusting. The lucky bit is there was only us around here. Remember, this was the Zoz. There was mines and mines and literally seeded mines everywhere around here. And all on the side of the road, you'd get little stakes, like I told you yesterday, saying Mina on it. That's when you could see the side of the road, when it wasn't thick in snow. I think the CP vehicle used to park up there. But this was definitely the place where the drops, the big Foden vehicles that I showed you in the picture, parked up. And you can see by the picture how cold it was. We're really high up here. Cold Hussar. Who would have thought? I mean, you know, it's just the weirdest feeling. Who'd have thought 30 years ago I'll be up here doing a film with my motorhome travelling about Bosnia. Back then there was nothing, none of this was here. If it was a shell with nothing, just, You couldn't go near it because of the sabotage and because of the tripwires and because of the mines and because of the risk involved of wandering around somewhere that used to belong to the enemy. And obviously this was the line that we're trying to keep apart, so this saw a lot of conflict around here, so it could be booby trapped. So we stayed out. We stayed out and we stayed around this area around here with the guns and the Foden IMM-1Cs with the ammunition on the back of them, and we were the deterrent. We sat on the line and we deterred the combatants fighting each other again. Right, Cold Hussar, eh? I bet that brings back a lot of memories for those people that were at Glamoc, that's for sure. Right, coffee time. So we're actually pulling off from where the Fodens parked, and I've got a photo here. Clear from the right. Still clear from the right. I've got a picture here which will compare and contrast of
continue on M15 for 10 miles
where the motorhomes parked and where the Fodens were parked. So as we drive off from Cold Hussar, I want to talk about communications. So when we first arrived,
An old train.
yeah, the old train up there. For those that remember the old train, there she is. So like I say, we were the first ones, IFOR first ones here, and we were the first ones to deploy with Bates. Now, I think Bates stood for Battlefield Artillery Target Engagement System or something like that. Don't shoot me, you know, I can't remember that. But yeah, we were the first one to deploy with it, and it had this, you know, communication system that came with it. And we could communicate from here down to Glamoc on radio. But any further than that was HF territory. If you wanted to communicate with Jajce, that we're going to tonight, which is where the HQ was, that had to be by HF. And there's about 6 people in the battery could work a HF radio with any experience. Harry Harris, one of them. Neil... No, not Neil Cook. Butler, Neil Butler. Whoa, that name, that took some finding. Neil Butler were another one, and a few others. And they were scrabbling about setting HF radios up and trying to get them to work. Then they couldn't get them to work, and then they could, and then the weather changed and it didn't work. So, and we thought it was great. We thought it was absolutely fantastic because when we were doing our convoys, we used to go past places like Cuprez, a radio station. You used to have to book in and book out, but they never had comms with anyone because the comms didn't work, which gave us total freedom. Total freedom. It means 5.2 battery, our sort of base location, couldn't get hold of us to say, right, you know, we've been away long enough, come back, we've got something else really, really boring for you to do. So we just carried on and carried on and carried on until we actually ran out of jobs to do after asking for more work, and then returned back to Glamoc. There were sat phones, and remember in those days, this was 96, there was mobile phones, but they were not very good, and the cover was rubbish, and all the, you know, problems with the technology of that era. So communications, as far as we're concerned, for the bosses, for the battery commander and the CO and everyone else in you know, in command, oh, it was a real challenge. They couldn't speak to their men, they couldn't give orders, they couldn't give direction, they couldn't get updates but for us it was heaven. We were left alone. Once again it was 5.2 battery, the independent battery, which brings us back to the memories of Belize in 87, 88 with 5.2 battery, when we were an independent battery then as well. Got quite a history of being an independent battery, 5.2 Niagara battery actually. Because remember, we were seconded to 2.6. We were part of 4th Regiment of All Artillery, so we didn't deploy with 2.6 as our major unit. We were operational command 2.6. We belonged to 4th Regiment. So that was communications. I just thought I'd let you know about communications back in the day. HF ruled the world, and only about 5 people knew how to work an HF radio with any experience. People could set it up, but it's the fine experience of making it work that wasn't missing, because those 4 or 5 people definitely had the knowledge to do it, but it was the challenges of the environment and the experience of using it. Whereas 2.9 Commando use HF on a daily basis. We don't necessarily, the artillery, as in the field guns, don't normally use HF. It's always VHF, very high frequency. And for those that don't know, high frequency HF goes a long way, or supposed to, and VHF is a relatively short distance. And on the communications side as well, Ben Juice came from the trials team, the Bates trials team. So every time there was something go wrong, it was always, you know, I think it was a staff sergeant in those days, Staff Juice. He needed to come and fix this. He's a very busy man. So it was on this road here, not necessarily this part, that this photograph was taken. And basically what happened was, we were driving down these roads on a detail, delivering something, either ammunition or delivering shipping containers, and we came across this car on the side of the road, and it must have been 2 foot, without any exaggeration, about 2 foot deep in snow, and this old car was trying to get through with this old man in it. So we stopped and scratched our heads a bit to think, why are you out here in these conditions in this car trying to get down to where we're going to now, which is Mliniste. So we couldn't leave him. I mean, the guy would have died. He would have died there, no one else around, surrounded by snow, middle of nowhere, on his own, at least in his 70s. So we must have had an empty rack with us. One of the vehicles must have had an empty rack, so we offloaded the rack, put the car on the back of the rack, and then took him down to Mliniste, and then took him to his son's house, and offloaded the car, and then repatriated him with his son, and off we went on our way. What a great memory, eh? What a great memory of Bosnia. Just trying to help, you know. These roads were really bad in the snow, absolutely treacherous. Didn't know where the sides were, you know. It was all flat, and you can see where the sort of the grass is there. That was just all flat. It was just all one piece of snow. So the next place I'm going to take you to is an old gun position. So what I did was, I got the photographs that I've got from my photograph album, which luckily I named, and then I went on Google Earth, Google Maps, and found the nearest location.
I don't understand.
Went to the nearest location and then sort of looked around the maps and found where these locations were. So the next one we're going to is a gun position. When we get there, I'll update you. So So as we're driving down the road here, I keep remembering bits and pieces. And we've just been speaking about communications, and obviously there were rebro stations, but those rebro stations were in the middle of nowhere. And once they went down, in fact, here's a picture of a rebro station. So they were in the middle of nowhere, and once those rebro stations went down, all the communications went down. I just thought I'd mention that. So here we are at the next location, and this in 2026 looked like this. In 1996. See the resemblance of the building? I think that's the recce vehicle. It's probably Robbo, Klaus Roberts. But what I'll do is I'll type on the names of who will recognise they are. Can you see the metal posts there? Well, this used to look like this. And this. In 1996. How cool is that, eh? So we're almost down at Mliniste here, and we're going to drop down into Mliniste. Mliniste is difficult for me because I spoke to Iain Wilkie, who was the Motor Transport Warrant Officer for 26 Regiment at the time. He got about a lot more than I did in Land Rover to various locations. I had to ask him for his advice, but neither of us could really remember where the location was in Mliniste for, I think, 127 battery. Again, comment if it's different, but I visited there about twice to drop a couple of containers off, and then the opportunity wasn't there to go again, so I didn't. Found this place on Google Maps. I love doing old to new, new to old, and to say this place hasn't changed in 30 years. Someone's nicked the metal rails, we know that. Scrap value probably, and two of the posts are left that indicate where they were. And again, as a reminder, the last time I was here I was a 27-year-old bombardier, to be promoted to sergeant the year after. So we're going to head down the road now, and we're going to head down into Mliniste. When we get into Mliniste, I'm going to try and do as much filming as I can. Ian said it was at the side of the road and it was a slaughterhouse. But like I said before, I really can't remember. I hope you spot where you were for those that were in Mliniste. I apologise for not finding the exact location, but I did try. I tried really hard. Even on the Bosnia Revisited group, it was quite difficult. But here goes. So the last location was the furthest that I remember going in the guns in this direction towards Jajce and Mliniste. But if you think that'll be about 50 k's. So that's 50 k's track miles to get there, and obviously return journey. Before we gave the AS90 to the Ukrainians, track mileage was so restricted that you had to put them on low loaders to take them any distance at all. How times have changed. And now of course there is no AS90. We've got about 3 Archer vehicles, no trucks to transport the ammunition. Yeah, really great position to be in. MLRS is doing nice, doing well, but it isn't, you know, we don't talk about the whole capability, the whole Royal Artillery. You talk about field guns, you talk about MLRS, you talk about air defence, sound ranging, radars, all the rest of the full capability. And now there is no field guns. And no air defence, apart from the handheld, apart from the air defence in the Falklands. What a sad state to be in, eh? Anyway, this is now. So where we're going now, it is Mliniste, but doing a little bit of research, there's a place called Podborough. So we're going to go to Podborough. I'll take some video footage of where the location could have been, the slaughterhouse, and then we'll head towards Jajce and then get some more footage of where this place in Mliniste could have been as a second location. So this is the Podborough location, completely redeveloped. If it ever was the location of the slaughterhouse for 127 battery. Like I said before, I'm having real problems trying to find the location. There's here, and there's also a location in Mliniste, off to the side of the road, which we're going to go to next in that direction. But I just thought I'd get this in case somebody watching this goes, yeah, actually it was there, you can work it out, that was there, this was there, that was the road, that's how I used to get in. That's pretty much how the train of thought usually goes. But because it's so redeveloped, yeah, I mean, somebody might recognise that old building down there with holes in the roof. That looks like probably 30 years old as a indicator, a marker. Okay, more in Mliniste. So there's just a bit more footage because, again, the uncertainty of, there's a bus coming, of where it was. It could have been just on there on the left. But we're now heading towards Mliniste and Jajce. So the only other location I've got from Mliniste is down on the left hand side over this bridge. And we're just going to go past it now. So down there, where that wood yard is, just down there, is the only other location that I've got from Mliniste, unfortunately. So now we're going to go from Mliniste, we're going to go to Jajce, and hopefully we're going to go to where 26's HQ was. Been given some direction by Iain Wilkie, and I've done a bit of a map recce, but it's highly developed, as you can well imagine. So we'll see when we get there. So we're about what's it say there, 5.5 miles from Jajce, from the metal factory, which we're going to go to first. And then from there we'll go to the campsite for the night, and then tomorrow's activity day, visiting waterfalls across some lovely areas around Jajce. So as we travelled over from Glamoc, across the mountains, and then down into the Jajce Valley, in fact you literally just saw on the side of the road there saying snow chains required. As we were driving over the mountains, we'd put snow chains on, otherwise you would not get anywhere. And as we were driving down into Jajce, as we are doing now, the snow line would come and go, but the snow line would end about 3 miles outside the Mel factory, and then you'd go into the Mel factory, you'd visit HQ 26 Regiment and Remy, you'd drop off the shipping containers or pick up something, then you'd leave, and then you'd come reverse. And there was an enforced policy to prevent wear to the roads and to the wheels and to the tyres, that when you left the snow line you took your snow chains off. Now these snow chains, I'm going to put a picture here. You can see the size of these snow chains. They took, to begin with, they took us 2 hours to get on. That's 2 of us. So 2 hours to get on, to fit, and then about 3/4 of an hour or half an hour to take off. Take off was relatively easy. It was just unhook, drive forward, and stash them away. So it was a gamble. We either took the snow chains off, half an hour, went into Jajce, come out of Jajce, drove another 3 miles, and then spent 2 hours putting them back on again. Well, you risked it. But in Jajce was the home of WO2 Sergeant Major Iain Wilkie, who was the Motor Transport Warrant Officer. And he was the guy who enforced the rule of snow chains on, snow chains off. He probably never fitted snow chains to a Foden or took them off, but he enforced the law. And on this one occasion, myself and Mark Wood, we probably got to this point here, approximately 4 miles away, out the snow line, and thought, fuck, that's just, what a pain in the ass. Half an hour to take them off, and 2 hours to, if you're lucky, 2 hours. If it went right, it was 2 hours to put them back on again. You had to pull over to the side of the road, and you know, you had to find a place to pull over, and you weren't alone. There was other trucks that was under the same duress who had to take the snow chains off and put them back on again. So on this one occasion, we risked it. And just to digress slightly, this was the same Sergeant Major Iain Wilkie who just praised us for doing an excellent job on the basic driver course in Glamoc some weeks earlier. Came into Glamoc, saw what we're doing, really impressed. Got the models, sectionalised the models, just like Bovington, you know, the standards of Bovington reproduced in a war zone, basically. So he was really impressed. He went away really happy, singing our praises. So we rocked up to Jajce into the HQ, dropped off our box, our shipping container, thinking we'd got away with it, but then headed towards the gates, and Iain Wilkie came running out as fast as his little legs could carry him, with his Sergeant Major cane, wielding it like a sword, like he was going to cut us down. Stop! Stop! And then he gave us such a bollocking, like a stand-up bollocking in the middle of the road for all to see, on how not to come into Jajce with snow chains on. And at that point, with a screaming Scottish Sergeant Major breathing down your neck, and I was the full screw, so I was getting it. Mark Wood as a Lance Bombardier. It was a yes sir, no sir, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, no sir kind of conversation. And it resulted in taking the bloody snow chains off there and then to drive 3 miles to put them back on again. I'll tell you what, there was some swearing going on when we had to drive another 2 miles out of Yates to put them back on again 2 hours later. But yeah, that was Iain Wilkie. Great, fantastic person. I literally owe him a large proportion of my career, because after we went back from Bosnia in '96, he, unbeknown to me, you know, I didn't know any of this. He went to Bovington as the Wing Sergeant Major, and he was the one who, having seen me operate in Bosnia and deliver the course to, which was a high standard with the resource that we had, he was the one that put my name forward for the driving and maintenance school CARDA, and that was the location in Bovington where driving and maintenance instructors were taught by schools instructors, by people who were taught to a much higher level in order to get the information across to those bombardiers, lance bombardiers, sergeants who would then teach at a regimental level. So Iain Wilkie went there. I didn't know this, you know, he'd been a schools instructor, I didn't know any of that. And the next thing I knew is my battery commander at the time, probably in 1997, calling me in and saying, you've been headhunted. The Bovington somehow have got your name. Something to do with Bosnia in '96, and you've been headhunted, and they want you to go as a schools instructor. A lovely waterfall. I had to get my education done to promote myself to sergeant, so got the education done, and then 99, I went to Bovington as a Ciencio sergeant school instructor, and it was his doing, his direct doing, that really boosted me off, really started my career going, because until then I wasn't sure whether I was going to be on the guns. Remember, we were in Bosnia and I did 3 months driving Fodens as a MT. I don't think I was even the MT2IC there, I was just a bombardier, to a little bit of the guns at the end, unsure what to do, what path to take, and then sort of he headhunted me to go to Bovington, having seen me in Glamoc. Of course, when I turned up, the first conversation we had when I turned up was about snow chains. Oh God, all that good teaching the basic and advanced driver's course as a bombardier, to be ripped apart by the very same person for not having snow chains into this godforsaken hole. And the rest is history, really. I went from school instructor, A grade recommendations, as a staff sergeant, regimental fleet manager.
After 1 kilometre, turn left, Urbana.
Ignore that. And then on to motor transport warrant officer, and then battery sergeant major, and then master driver, which really affected the way I was commissioned as well, for the positive. So heading down into Yates now, and the sat nav wants to take us to
There's a speed camera ahead.
the camp location. But I'm on 9% battery, so what I'm going to do is,
After 350 metres, turn left, Urbana.
Take us
then
down
go left
to
on
the metal
roundabout
factory.
and take the third exit
Ignore that.
to Japanatom Sevica.
go straight on. And and when I get to the metal factory, hopefully this battery won't run out. In fact, I'm going to stop it here so it doesn't ruin the whole film. Okay, well, they're busy in there, so we're gonna leg it now. If I'm honest, I don't want to annoy people for annoying's sake. They're going about there. Oh, 1 second. We may have got an English-speaking man here. 1 second. This might take a bit of editing. Hello, my friend. Hello. Martin, pleased to meet you.
Hi, Dean.
Hello. In 1996,
Okay.
30 years ago,
Okay.
I was here as a soldier,
Okay.
a British soldier.
Okay.
But I'm trying to find. It was in a metal factory.
There is metal.
This one here.
This is big factory.
So this one directly ahead of us now is the metal factory. Okay. So it's in this area. Is this still open?
No. Closed about 2 years.
Okay. Can I drive to it?
No.
Okay.
You have a gate there, but
Closed.
yeah.
Okay, no problem at all. So we almost made it. Okay. We will go now, but thank you. Hafala.
Name on it too.
So obviously you heard that conversation. That was the guy saying it's actually that metal factory over there. This does look a bit new, doesn't it? He said there's a gate. Can't remember it being that big, that tall. But obviously it must have been. That looks like it's been there for ages. He reckons it closed about 2 years ago. But there's no getting in there if there's a gate. And I'm definitely not gonna start wandering around, because that would be the wrong thing to do. Having spoken to the guy there, that you can see across there. How it's been developed over the years. That site no longer used. This site now been developed. Yeah, it's been 30 years. I mean, God. Just because Glamoc is stuck in time doesn't mean everywhere else is. Right.
Left, E661. Sharp left, then turn left.
So we've just been speaking to a guy that speaks really good English,
Then turn left onto
and
Baraci.
he said that the actual original metal factory is that one to the right there, the old building there.
Turn left
Which kind of
onto
makes
Scalar,
sense,
E661.
because the other one looked kind of new, didn't it?
Head towards Scalar, E661.
So they reckon that one was
Then turn left.
the original one. So what I'm going to do is, he said I can't go in because it's gated off now.
Continue on E661.
After 150 meters, turn left, Ricker, then
So I'm
turn
going
around
to
where
ignore
possible. Turn left,
all
then
the
turn
signs
around
for the
where
GPS,
possible.
and I'm going to try and drive round as close to I can, and maybe someone will recognise the entrance. Do you recognise the old house on the left there? They said there's a gate, it's all closed off. To the original one. I'm going to pull in here actually, because I've got vehicles behind me and it looks like a pull in. And I'm going to pull around the back of him. Into where the trucks are. And I'll get out and take some more footage, and I think that'll be all for now, because there's only so much looking around you can do without being annoying. That's the old metalworks there. Next to this road, Ian did say down, turn left, across the bridge, then in, which kind of makes sense. I think we got as close as we could get. Without really annoying people. We gave loads of apologies and sought a little bit of permission. But it's time to move on. Let's move on to the campsite. So this is the directions that Ian told me about. Across the bridge and left.
After 800 metres, turn left.
Just in there.
E761.
Which is where we went.
5.
But now onto the campsite.